Hello, everyone. My name is Sakthia Chandra. Welcome to the Tech Talk today. The title that we have is Preventing BEC and Spearphishing Cyber Attacks on Microsoft Office 365 Email. Let's bring Dan, our resident expert on Microsoft, into the program to talk a little bit about the MISA ecosystem that Microsoft has created. Maybe Dan, let me ask you as a first pass, what is MISA and why is Microsoft so bullish about it?
Sure, thank you, Sakti. So MISA is the Microsoft Intelligence Security Association, and it was created in 2018 for the purpose of bringing together top cybersecurity experts from across the industry who have the shared goal of improving customer security and improving customer security in the context of helping customers modernize their security infrastructures as they're modernizing everything else with their transition to cloud.
That's wonderful. And I know Microsoft got started with this journey in almost 2, 3 years back, 2018 to be specific. And they have definitely invested quite a bit of their time, effort, and energy into the program itself. Maybe if I can double click on MISA and get your thoughts on it, Dan. Obviously, there is a specific strategy that they have put in place. So if you were to call out the areas of collaboration or areas that Microsoft says, boy, this is something that Microsoft can't do it by themselves, but they really look for the ISVs and MSPs to provide value. What are these? I'm just flashing this up on screen, but can you maybe walk us through the 30,000-foot level on these four areas?
Sure. So, in recognizing that security is a team sport, Microsoft has provided those of us who are either on the ISV side of cybersecurity or on the services side of cybersecurity, a rich array of platforms for us to integrate with and or to provide services around. And so encompassing four main areas, beginning with identity, recognizing that identity sits at the forefront of any sound and robust security strategy, and expanding into threat protection in the realm of the ever evolving threat landscape, and with email continuing to be the primary vector for the costliest cyber attacks. And then relatively new in the MISA framework are solutions and services geared to compliance and privacy, recognizing that in order for the cloud to be trusted, it has to be secure, but it also has to be compliant and private. You have to be able to understand if you are dealing with data loss. You have to be able to ensure your compliance posture. You have to be able to protect your information from both internal and external threats. And then also relatively recently extending all of this to the multi-cloud environment, where many customers have a multi-cloud strategy. Microsoft has gone the extra mile to extend a broad array of its security solutions out to protect customers who do have a multi-cloud strategy.
Great, thanks, Dan. So just playing it back, what took what I took notes here when you were describing the four areas of collaboration is that Microsoft is saying that, hey, they can't do this alone, and they are investing in a program where they can let ISPs come in and help them help their customers protect their environment holistically. And you talked about two areas, which I know in anyone related to cybersecurity, they're all interested, curious, always looking for the best technology and tools to protect themselves, or the endpoint security, because we know that the endpoint is a very big vector when it comes to threats, and also email security, right? So when I look into the second column here, threat protection, where they have listed Microsoft Defender for Endpoint and Microsoft Defender for Office 365. Amongst everything, they have definitely called these two as areas where they do need help from other vendors to help protect the threats that they're seeing out in the wild. And I agree, compliance and data loss and privacy are also very top of mind. And as customers embrace cloud, it can't be at the expense of laxing the compliance or going easy on data loss. In fact, you have to look at new ways in protecting these and making sure they're compliant. But let me ask you a question. Can any vendor be part of this program? What are some of the guardrails? What are some of the requirements from Microsoft for someone to be part of this program?
Yeah, so in order to be invited, and it is an invitation-only program, to be invited into the Microsoft Intelligence Security Association, you, if you're on the ISV side, have to have integrated your solution with one of the first-party buckets that you see listed on this slide, whether that be Azure Active Directory for identity or Azure Sentinel or Defender for Office 365, and to have that validation or integration validated by the program team attached to that solution area. If you're on the MSSP side, the services side of security, you have to have a certain number of certifications and competencies and or advanced specializations in cybersecurity.
Got it. Wonderful. So it's invitation only, and it needs to have a meaningful product integration that's validated by Microsoft for you to be part of the program. Obviously, the areas of focus is what's out here on the slide. So thank you. Thank you for sharing this. I think this information is definitely useful for anyone in cybersecurity to understand, what Microsoft's strategy is and how do different vendors in the industry can play hand in hand in solving some of the biggest challenges. Lastly, on the MISA program, how has the program been? It's been, what, 3 years since it's been launched? What's been the progress? What's been the adoption in the market so far?
So the program has grown, I wouldn't say exponentially, but it's grown at a steep linear rate ever since its inception. And it's to the point where it's become a badge of honor, certainly a competitive differentiator in a crowded cybersecurity landscape. If you are able to point to MISA membership as something that you hold, whether it's from the services side or from the IP side, it gives a strong degree of credibility in the marketplace with end customers who have a lot of choices to make when it comes to protecting their users and their infrastructures.
Wonderful. So I can definitely relate to it. This is just not a logo swap where, we are all aware of different programs where vendors come together and then there's an exchange of just branding and marketing message. Since this program is really, again, as you counted, it's invitation only, excuse me, it needs to be led by product and technology integration. There is much, much more meat behind. And if you are a Microsoft ecosystem partner, customer, then if you're looking to augment your Microsoft investment, you definitely need to check this out. Vendors who will come together under the patronage of Microsoft and make sure that it's a validated, integrated, proven, tested solution. Let's talk about Microsoft's packaging and licensing that is available. And let's narrow the scope, because this could be an hour-long, 2-hour-long conversation if you open it out for everything, every product of Microsoft. So let's put the guardrails and boundaries in place first. Let's talk about licensing and packaging just for Microsoft email protection. And let's do it in 2 compartments. Let's take the first one as just packaging, and then we'll talk about licensing, because I do think these 2 needs to be explained so our audience can get a feel for what's available and how they can think about the 2 options from an economical financial transaction perspective. Why don't you guide us and take it away just to talk about packaging first, and then we come back and try to unpack the licensing piece.
Sure, happy to do that. And I will preface my following comments with a disclaimer that I am in no way a Microsoft licensing specialist. It's an extraordinarily complex field, as you might expect from a company that has, I don't know, 30,000 SKUs. But I will say that Microsoft's own Aaron Dinage has done a beautifully detailed, interactive guide to Microsoft 365 licensing with a web portal called m365maps.com. So anytime I have a question on what's included in a plan or included in a feature of a plan, that's my first stop. And so now that I've said that, email protection with Microsoft begins with Exchange Online protection, which if you have an Office 365 license of any flavor, you have Exchange Online protection encompassing anti-spam and anti-malware. And then depending on which package you're in from a 365 point of view, you either have or can buy Defender for Office 365 Plan 1 or Defender for Office 365 Plan 2. Plan 1 extends what you get in Exchange Online protection with anti-phishing and safe attachments, safe links, the kind of things that help protect you from some of the more advanced attacks. And then Plan 2 goes a number of steps further and brings in things like simulation training to help you train your users to identify suspicious emails and automated investigation and response. So if a user suspects a breach and reports it to your simulation to your phishing inbox, it helps you to investigate those. And so from a package perspective, you have a number of choices. And then depending on how you're licensed for 365 determines which of those packages you get. So if you are all in with Microsoft 365, E5 or A5, then you are robustly covered with Plan 2. If you're on Plan 1, then you have the option to either purchase Plan 1 for $2 a month, or you can purchase Plan 2 for $5 a month. If you are a small business and you're under 300 mailboxes and you're running Microsoft 365, you can go to Business Premium if you're not already there, and you will get Plan 1, which was a new announcement that Microsoft made at Ignite back at the beginning of November.
Wonderful. I think that was definitely a great summary, Dan, on the packaging and licensing. To maybe quickly recap, there is EOP, which is by default, everyone gets it, right? Office 365, as soon as you buy the product, EOP is there. That's almost bare minimum. You have anti-spam, anti-malware. Now, if you want to extend that from a prevention perspective, then you can go to Plan 1, which beyond anti-spam and anti-malware, it's got anti-phishing, some real-time reports. It protects the user, the end user, from malicious attachments, malicious links. Those are the capabilities in Plan 1. And beyond prevention, if you're interested in investigation, threat hunting, and also the ability to respond to threats, you can get other features like the simulation training, like the incident response, like the threat explorer, and you can go to town. So those are the three packages. And obviously on the licensing, you have to start somewhere. If you're in E5, then you're good. You get everything. And if you get Plan 2, that is kind of the all you can eat in terms of feature set. But if you're on E3 or A3, you can have the option to buy either Plan 1 or Plan 2. And in Microsoft Ignite, the user conference in November of 2021, they announced that all business premium users, customers, will get Plan 1 automatically as well. So this is a good snapshot of how to think about email protection. Let's quickly first take a bird's eye view of what are the options that's available to you as someone looking at email security. probably the best way to read this chart is let's look at the different attack vectors in the x-axis, the kind of attacks that you're trying to solve for. So starting from the left and working towards the right, obviously the spam and malware is the first origination of email-based attacks, which is really based on spray and pray, where the attacker is trying to send out millions of emails out, hoping that one of them would click in their favor against the organization. And maybe the next phase was the phishing attacks that we touched upon briefly, but also going to the far right, the attacks have evolved into more sophisticated targeted attacks that either compromises an individual or a business workflow, or even organizations outside your own preview, like the third party and vendors and suppliers, etc. So that is the email attack spectrum. On the y-axis, you have the different options. And then just to crudely summarize, working your way from bottom to the top, you have the native email security, which is probably your email vendor, typically a cloud-based vendor like Microsoft Office 365 or G Suite, or even your on-premises Microsoft Exchange. And you have the option, the second option of going with a secure email gateway, where it acts as a gateway or a proxy, or even a firewall for email to help protect those inbound and outbound email communications. And finally, an API-based approach, which is what Armorblox is all about, that can provide you coverage across the spectrum. And as you can see here in this chart, different technologies, different vendors have their strengths in different segments of it. The native email security is obviously really good at covering spam, malware, and they also definitely for add-on options bleed into helping you to stop some of the phishing attacks. Same thing with the email gateway as well, which is they cover the spectrum very strongly when it comes to spam, malware, antivirus, and for add-on options, they do provide basic feature sets to address phishing. Where the API-based vendors like Armorblox really comes in is we do not offer the feature sets for spam and malware, but we do have a comprehensive coverage when it comes to the most targeted and sophisticated attacks that you will see. So let's put this again a little bit more into the details of how to think about Office 365 here specifically, and get an idea of how Armorblox will complement what you might be looking at, either a standalone native security features and or a combination of add-on features on top of those native security capabilities. So maybe to summarize this chart into three different viewpoints, let's take a look at the EOP, which stands for Exchange Online Protection. Those are features that come out of the box when you subscribe to Office 365. So you don't have to pay or configure or add anything extra beyond what you get from just the email capabilities. So these security features are baked in for no additional cost, and it's native to Office 365. Armorblox definitely complements some of these features based on, again, the API-based approach and the AI and ML capabilities that we just talked through in the previous section. But what's important is, as you look into gearing up your strength in defense and in protection, you probably are going to be thinking about the MDO, Microsoft Defender for Office 365 pack. It comes in two capabilities or packaging, Plan 1 and Plan 2. Plan 1 is geared towards prevention. And again, it helps you to provide probably the basic bare minimums that you would need, from time of click protection, safe attachments, safe links, and also some basic capabilities when it comes to stopping the phishing attacks. Where Armorblox comes in is really to complement either EOP as a standalone or EOP plus a combination of Plan 1 to really address those new age sophisticated threats. For example, like targeted spear phishing, like the vendor supplier account compromise, like the compromises that can be dangerous when the emails are attacking the business workflow, like payment fraud, payroll fraud, invoice fraud, etc. And hopefully this gives you a way to think about how you can protect with the basic addition of what comes out of the box with EOP, and are looking at plan one from a pure prevention perspective, and where Armorblox can come in and be a complementary solution on top of Office 365 capabilities. That's on the prevention side. In terms of investigation, we are moving the scene towards probably more in the security operations side of the house, where the team is looking at how to investigate threats, how to hunt for proactively some of the threats that might have come into your organization. Again, the similar thought process would be helpful here, which is the EOP version, the native version that comes with Office 365 without any add-ons from Microsoft, gives you some basic capabilities, like you're able to audit log search, you're able to search by email from an investigation and hunting perspective. We provide complementary feature sets on those two, but really, as you're trying to amp up the capabilities of your SecOps, you're probably going to be looking at both plan one and plan two, which goes into a SIM integration, perhaps the capability to do threat exploration based on IOCs and other hashes, if you may. Where Armorblox really helps the security operations team is providing the capability to understand the details of the email threads in the context of all the recipients in your organization. As an example, you're able to parse out, based on perhaps one email that has breached your defenses, who else in the organization has received it, who has forwarded it, and what is the time and date, and what are the explorations, if you may, based on hunting and investigation on a suspect email that has come in. We also provide a pretty good detailed analysis of the user risk profile, which is really understanding if there are targeted attacks, be it a VIP in the company or a specific personnel in the department, to really parse out who's getting attacked the most, who's the most vulnerable, which organization are being attacked constantly, so you can be proactive in terms of investigating and hunting for threats. And not to lose sight, Armorblox definitely complements the Microsoft offering when it comes to the vendor risk score, giving you a complete, clear view and details of your existing suppliers, existing vendor relationships from an email perspective, the frequency of communication, the amount of traffic between the different personnel within your company and the different vendors, really providing you the visibility and the capability to investigate and drill down into your vendor and supplier landscape. So that's on the investigation side. And to wrap it up, on the response, which is once you are able to pinpoint and identify a threat, obviously you want to bolster your security posture, either by taking a quick response or putting together a best-in-class policy or change or edits to your policy to make sure that these threats don't come again. Again, very similar thought process. There are basic feature sets in Exchange Online protection, the EOP feature sets. But really, if you want to get deep into response, you have to consider plan two of the Microsoft Defender for Office package. And they do a really good job of, again, helping you to respond with some automated playbooks, understanding the compromised users, but most importantly, the SIM integrations with the Microsoft technology stack, specifically Microsoft Sentinel. Where you can think about Armorblox coming in to complement these is to go maybe beyond the Microsoft ecosystem. So if your SIM tech stack is Splunk or Palo Alto Networks or Sentinel-1, from a SIM and XDR perspective, we have out-of-the-box connectors that can help you to take the email threat intel and feed it into your choice of SIM platform for you to continue to do the response playbooks and the investigations there. We also take the end user adoption, end user training baked into the product itself. So we have this notion of warning banners, which is really the ability to bring in the end users. When I say the end users, the recipients of these emails, and make them part of your defense so that they are proactively notified, updated through the warning banners on suggested actions and however you configure it to ensure that beyond the tools and the processes, you're also involving the people in your organization. We also provide natively the capabilities when it comes to the mail SOAR, SOAR standing for Security Operations and Automation Response, which is again your capability to run playbooks if you're just wanting to contain the playbooks that as it relates to email just within one product. And we do provide that capability that is out of box. And finally, the mailbox remediation. A lot of day-to-day noise and busy work that we have seen in our customers from a security operations standpoint when it comes to responding to threats is I have a whole bunch of playbooks depending on the nature of the attack, nature of the threat, nature of the intel behind the threat. And you just need a simple playbook and a policy to automate most of the features when it comes to either quarantining the email, doing a hard delete, or putting it in the spam folder. We can help you to automate that right out of Armorblox without having to invest time or technology in different stack. So again, here's a quick way to think about, yes, you're an Office 365 email customer, and there are few options just from Microsoft on bolstering your email security and some ideas about how you can think about complementing that using Armorblox. Okay, Dan, this is an exciting marketplace that Microsoft had announced as part of Azure, their cloud strategy. And I do know they have a huge importance, and they have elevated the Azure marketplace to the way Microsoft transacts going forward. So let's try to understand some details on what the marketplace is and what are the benefits for the customer. To begin with, let's just maybe unpack what is the marketplace and how should a prospect think about the Microsoft marketplace, which might be different from most of either the consumer marketplace that anyone is aware of, or even the other B2B marketplaces out there.
Sure, yeah. So Azure Marketplace is one of two Microsoft marketplaces. So they also have AppSource being more geared towards line of business type applications, such as maybe you would deploy alongside your Dynamics 365 investment, for example. Azure Marketplace is more geared to the technical audience, the technical buyer, and it is effectively an online store where customers can go to search for, to trial, to evaluate or request evaluations of a diverse array of services and applications, some of which are there for free, some of which you can actually buy through the marketplace, and some of which you can buy with your existing Azure commitment that you've made to Microsoft.
Got it. And this is really Microsoft making a pretty bold statement about obviously their investments in cloud infrastructure, and most importantly, how, again, prospects and customers can consume other components of the infrastructure, right? That could be, again, pieces of the infrastructure, components of it, or even other services and applications that run on top of the Azure cloud marketplace or the cloud infrastructure that they have put together. What are the benefits if you are a customer to go through the marketplace, and what would be some of the highlights that you would call out?
Yeah, so, and actually before I answer that, I should add a statement to what you had just said about the marketplace, in that it's also an investment Microsoft has made in us as partners too, recognizing that the greatest value from any cloud platform comes from the services and applications which are either running on or being provided around that platform. And so the marketplace really exists to connect potential customers to solutions that deliver meaningful business outcomes that are aligned to the customer's objectives, whatever the objectives might be with their investment in the Microsoft cloud. But in the context of the benefits that flow from all that, for an end customer, it really comes down to simplification and velocity. So because if you are transacting through a marketplace, you are effectively buying from or through Microsoft, that dramatically simplifies procurement. You probably don't need to go through a separate vendor onboarding or vetting process, which can often take weeks or months. And most solutions in Marketplace have click-through agreements, where either it's the Microsoft standard agreement, or it's the standard agreement with a few custom terms, or it's custom terms which are embedded in the transaction. And but the real beauty of it from an ongoing value is this consolidated billing and invoicing. So when you transact through Marketplace and you are doing so with your Azure commitment, then the solutions that you buy just appear as a line item on your bill. You don't need to worry about paying invoices on a monthly or annual basis. You don't need to worry about where am I going to find budget for this, because it's it's all been consolidated with your Azure bill. And then finally, it's worth noting that from a confidence perspective, everything you see in the marketplace has been certified by Microsoft according to defined criteria. And when you look in the marketplace, and you'll see some solutions have a badge, a blue logo, that indicates it's a preferred solution. And when you see a preferred solution, it gives you an extra measure of confidence, because that means that it's actually been vetted and identified by Microsoft experts as coming from a vendor which has proven expertise in a certain area.
Oh, that's good to know. So as you are navigating the marketplace, keep an eye on two things, right? One, there's the level of confidence that this particular product, application, technology has been built on top of the ever increasing maturity, richness, and obviously everything that Microsoft brings to the table in terms of a cloud platform. That's number one. And two, that is very similar to what you would find in a consumer app store. There is validation and vetting here by Microsoft professionals with that ribbon that you talked about, which indicates that it's a preferred solution by Microsoft to its customers. One last question before I let you go. So if I'm a prospect or a customer who is interested in transacting through the marketplace, what's the next step?
So you could go one of two ways. You could talk to your Microsoft account team about how do I transact through Marketplace. It may be a new thing, but it is by design simple. Once you've gotten the process worked out, it's extremely simple in terms of how to transact and how to manage your purchases. Or you could talk to your vendor. If your vendor has invested in listing on Marketplace, particularly if they have a transactable offer in Marketplace, you can contact them and they can take you through what the procurement process looks like from their perspective, because it may be that the list price or the plans that you see in the offer in Marketplace are actually placeholders or suggested list price. The vast majority of enterprise contracts, at least in transactions I've been party to, are done through a vehicle called private plans, where the pricing and the terms are negotiated separately from Marketplace, and then you transact through your Azure portal.
Wonderful. Thanks, Dan. That was definitely very helpful. Good insights on just the importance of Marketplace and what to look for once you're browsing for products, technologies, and also how to move forward with the next step. So appreciate you sharing that with our audience.
Thank you, Sakthia.
And that concludes our final part of the Tech Talk on the topic of BEC and spear phishing attacks on Microsoft Office 365 email. Hope you enjoyed all the 3 sections. And as always, if you have any comments, any feedback, any questions, do not hesitate to reach out to us. We are at armorblox.com. You can just come into our website and then drop in a comment or a question and reach out to us. Thanks for joining and see you later. Bye.